Okay, folks, next up, we have an hour-long panel discussion. Remote work, flexible hours, do these sound like bizarre terms to you? This roundtable discussion is meant to answer any apprehensions you may have regarding life after service. We'll be joined by Joe Simpson, founder and co-chair of Veterans at Infor, Employee Resources Group at Infor, JT Liddell, founder of Promenade, Katja Manuel, executive assistant and community organizer at Garden State Equality, and Aaron Williams, United States Marine Corps veteran. They'll share their insights on how they navigate the alleys of corporate America. And this discussion is made possible by our platform sponsor, Infor. I will pass it over to the panel. Enjoy.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for joining this panel. This is Linda with Power to Fly. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for joining. We're going to have this panel. We're going to be talking about how can veterans make their way into the alleys of corporate America. As Hunter mentioned, we're going to be joined by JT Liddell, Aaron, Katja Manuel, and Joe. So this is part of our Diversity Reboot 2021, which attracts a diverse audience where majority attendees are identified as females and non-white. So the attendees will also include allies and especially HR and DEI talent executives. And we're looking to hire more veterans and their families and improve the feeling of belonging in the workplace for these communities. Okay, so welcome JT, welcome Joe, welcome Katja, and welcome Aaron. We're going to start this conversation. Thank you for joining with a brief introduction from all of you. Can you share more about your work and your passions? And please feel free to come off camera. And hi, Aaron, Manuel, Katja. Yes, I see you now. Please, if you can share a briefing, can you share a little bit more about you and about your experience as veterans and how you are helping your community to join the workforce?
Yeah, I'll kick things off. Can you all hear me?
We can, JT.
Yeah, so I'm JT Liddell. I'm the founder of an organization called Promenade. And what we do there is we match and connect military veterans to the resources that matter for their post-military career. I was in the military. I was in the U.S. Army for around 5 or 6 years. I did intelligence work, did a number of deployments, both in the military and as a defense contractor. And just like many of the veterans on the line today and on the panel, was not ready for that challenge that hit me very hard as I got out of the military and left the defense industry. So I have made it my life's mission at Promenade to help those who are coming behind me and veterans that are even before me. So whoever wants to go next.
Hey JT, this is Joe Simpson. I'll go next. Thank you for your service, by the way. I was U.S. Air Force for 30 years, and I was extremely fortunate because I was active duty for 10 years, and then I was in the Air Force Reserves, extremely active for 20 years. And my company, they just didn't care whether I was doing my job here at the software company or if I was doing reserve, just as long as I was being productive and I was putting my core values to work. And so that's one of the biggest things that I've been able, as the founder of the Veterans of Infor, to be able to go into hiring managers, to people both inside and outside of our company, is to say that in today's world, everything is constantly changing. So you can bring in veterans who have the core competencies, the skills, the knowledge and abilities to go out there and consume technology, have a voracious appetite for it, and bring their core values and put them to work. And so I think it's extremely important, not for the veterans to give back to the veterans. Of course, that's important, but it makes our customers stronger to have our veterans within an organization making it stronger. It makes my company stronger, and it makes those people that surround them a lot stronger. So people always think, well, you're providing a benefit for the veterans. That's always an afterthought. If we put the company and the customers first, then many veterans will follow from a recruitment perspective. So thanks for having me here today, folks.
I'll go next. Thanks for having me here, and thanks, Aaron, JT, and Joe for your services. My name is Kaj Manuel. I'm the community organizer at Garden State Equality. Prior to joining Garden State Equality, I served 6 years in the United States Army. My MOS was actually 42 Alpha Human Resources. With that also came other special duty assignments like public affairs and finance officer. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you everyone for this opportunity, and thank you for your service. My name is Aaron Williams. I'm a student at Monmouth University. I'm the founder of Asbury Park Tennis Initiative, where we are implementing a tennis program in Asbury Park to fulfill a health and fitness and wellness attitude into the community. I served in the Marine Corps for 4 years between 2016 and 2020. I experienced a lot, and I'm grateful for this opportunity.
We are grateful because you're here with us, and thank you for your service. We're going to start this panel right away. So I want you to ask, it is safe to say that you're all inclined towards creating better and equal opportunities for veterans life after service? Like, please, can you tell us how does access to a remote workspace shape out or an easier re-entry into civilian life for veterans? If any of you can share their experience, like the main question is, how does access to remote workspace shapes out easier? Is it easy to re-entry into a civilian's life after you finish your service?
So I'll start this one off. I returned home from service in 2019, and it was right before the pandemic hit. And I'm glad I did it then, because I couldn't imagine I came home probably like 6 to 9 months later, it would have been a whole different ball game, because I still transitioned to civilian life while stuff was still in person. But yeah, I do like the switch from being in person back to virtual. It had its challenges. Coming back home in 2019, I had to sort of get used to civilian life at first. I didn't think it was going to be that much of a challenge, to be honest. I so underestimated especially coming from can you also hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Coming from a support job like HR and finance, my friend said paper pusher. So I thought my transition was going to be good and smooth. And I feel like when I re-entered the workforce, it hit me like a ton of bricks right in the wall, bang. And I was like, all right. But I'm still grateful for having that, even though it was less than a year, that in-person wiggle room to transition. I do like the virtual workspace. I couldn't imagine trying to transition now, although in trying to find work virtually, that's got to have its own challenges. Aaron might know more than me since he returned afterwards, but we both kind of returned during the pandemics, but it definitely had its challenges. Personally, I prefer working from home.
I just wanted to bounce back what you said, Kasha. I believe that the transition can be difficult and easy depending on the situation and variety of the individual. If the individual doesn't have a support group and a support team around them, finding a job, having that financial stability, and just transitioning from a way of the military lifestyle to the civilian lifestyle can be difficult. For me, I believe that I was, undergoing a lot of family health issues, and thankfully I had this support group behind me to fulfill that and to keep me in a place, in a mental state where I was able to, progress in my career.
Yeah, I'll go next. I think there's a couple things. Like when it comes to the overall transition and being able to tap into the different programs and the resources that are out there in order to make that transition as seamless as possible. I think it was sort of a good thing because those organizations that are out there that are helping the veteran population are now forced to go online. And a lot of these organizations that you didn't know about previously because they weren't online or didn't do a great job of being online and now are forced to, have a lot more visibility into them and can access them a little bit easier. When it comes to sort of one of the foundational things you need when you're getting out, which is a career, which helps you sustain your family and yourself, I also think it was a good thing because a lot of careers are now online. So if you live in California, you now have access to the financial industry and the jobs that have gone remote there. So I think it's, it wasn't a great time, obviously, the pandemic over the last couple of years. But it did provide a lot of opportunity to make that transition a little bit easier if you knew how to tap into it, effectively.
I'll just add one more thing to that. Just from a psychological perspective, being in the military, we're very tribal, right? And so being with an organization or group of people that walk, talk, and look the same as you, they show up at the same time, they leave at the same time, a group of individuals that by and large are being very selfless for their careers and their dedication to the military. And then that transition to the military where it's very individualistic, right? And so individuals in the military, there was a huge reorientation to go from the group or the herd mentality to the individual mentality. But every veteran out there has the skills to be able to navigate that. They just have to take a couple of experiences and harness that in order to be successful, right? Over communicate, right? Everybody's going through the same thing. The civilian counterparts are all in the same boat. And by creating a communication path, both with the people that you're trying to find a job with, or those individuals that if you do land a job and that you're working with, everybody is being remote. So building that virtual sense of community truly will make it successful for you.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing your stories. I mean, we're here to help you. We're here to be your support group and help veterans to encounter new job opportunities like this, to join the remote workforce. And it's amazing that you found your support group and now you're on this path. Now, moving forward to the next question is, what are some of the norms you had to adjust when interacting with your teammates in a virtual environment? Like, do you still follow disciplined work schedule? Like, we know that you are very committed. You are thought to be very disciplined, and these skills are amazing because it will help you for the rest of your lives in general. So being disciplined. Now moving to a workplace that now offer flexibility, like to work every day. What are some examples you can highlight for us? Like, how are you adjusting the norms that you learned and all the skills you learned? How are you adapting to to what's happening now with the remote world in 2021?
Yeah, I'll take this one. So I worked remote since 2015. So now everyone gets to come and join my norm. So I actually enjoyed from just going to a remote work environment. I actually enjoyed that because previously, people would be upset because I'm working remote and I don't have to go to an office every day. But now they get to enjoy it as much as I do. But I mean, there's pros and there's cons to it as well. So they can see like it's not all hunky dory. Like you have to be an individual who can practice, self-discipline when you're in your own environment. But for me personally, I enjoyed it because I'd already been working remote for quite some time.
And JT, this is Joe. I'll echo that. Is you can find yourself working, 14, 16, 18 hours a day if you're not careful, right? We're a global organization. I personally have peers and people that report to me in India and in Manila, and you can start your day at 0400 in the morning having a conversation with those peers. And if you're not careful, you'll run all the way through lunch and you'll run all the way into the evening time. And you have to have, let your work and your reputation stand on its own, and not worry about, what are other people going to be thinking if I clock out at 3:00. You know that you were on it at 0400 and you skipped your lunch break. So if you work 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, you're going to burn yourself out if you don't take that time and step back. And I'm trying to practice as what I preach as well. But you have to be able, with a very clear conscience, step back and recharge your battery so that when you do re-engage, that you are being productive for your customers, which means your company's going to be successful. And then in turn, you'll be successful as well.
Thank you for that, Joe. When you were speaking, I was like, that's me. It was something I had to learn this year. My executive director, who's actually going to be doing a panel tomorrow, Christian always stresses self-care, especially with now that we're moving to virtual, because I'm that guy. I don't like taking leave. I never took leave. And, the military is use it or lose it. And I would only take leave when the command's like, all right, block leave time, take it. Or if you don't take it now, you can't take it for 6 months. So I never like to take leave. I don't like to take a break for lunch. I like to get my work done. It's a little different. It was different for me because being an NCO who worked for like command, just because my job was HR, like S1 for military jargon. I'm so task oriented, and I wasn't used to being task oriented without giving a specific list of things to do. So I would try to find my what we call battle rhythm. At least like in the military, it was different. I know per stats due by this time. Wednesday, the report to the commander goes in this day. But in the civilian world, it was rough. I had to like make my own deadlines and stick to a strict schedule. And then I had to put going to the gym. If I didn't put going to the gym on my calendar, I wouldn't do it. If I didn't put, going to grab Starbucks, or I wouldn't do it. Next thing you know, it'll be 6 p.m. and I'm still working. And I had to prioritize, as Joe and JT said, self-care, take a break. And I'm fortunate enough to work for an organization that really does stress, what they call it, disconnecting on the weekends. Because with virtual, I have my work on my phone. Even if I go to my in-laws and I'm like, I'm not working this weekend, next thing you know, I'm working from my cell phone. So you do have to watch it and make sure you practice good self-care. That's something I had to learn. I have to itemize everything on a calendar and a task list, but I also have to make sure that I look out for myself, because in nonprofit work specifically, activism fatigue is real. And then if I'm burnt out, I'm not good for myself, those that I may be speaking on a panel to, or the organization. So yeah, Joe, you hit it like right on the head. Something I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah, and I want to reattack there for a quick second and talk about that vacation time, because on the finance side, organizations have moved to unlimited vacation, because vacation in the traditional sense is a huge liability on the financial books of a company. So they tell you at your own discretion and in partnership with your manager, take time as you need it. And that's, giving somebody 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks off is one thing, but telling them they have unlimited discretionary time off, then that right there will keep them from not even taking any vacation time, because it's like psychology, it'll work against them. So as a leader in my organization, here's an email that I just sent to my folks. I said, I expect that you take 4 weeks, 2 weeks being completely gone. And then you take the other 2 weeks and break it up into bite-sized pieces, however you see that you want to do it. And vacation means sand in your swim trunks, a lot of pictures, and a huge credit card bill, right? And you know what? The insanity will be here when you get back. So do not check your email. Do not check it while you're gone, because it'll just drive you crazy. And you're doing yourself and your company a disservice by not recharging your batteries while you're gone. And getting a haircut and oil change, that's not vacation, man. So just go take care of that business and do vacation like it's supposed to be. And if we create that culture, if everybody to the man and woman is doing that, then the organization's actually going to meet their corporate goals. But we have to do it from a grassroots level and bubble it up to the top.
That is an amazing advice, Joe. And I'm taking that personally. And I'm learning, I will be learning your way of giving hours, like 400. I'll learn that. Okay. Because that's new for me. Like I am familiarized from a distant perspective. So I'm learning from all of you. And it's amazing to know your stories. So moving forward, thank you, Ron. Do you want to add something to this?
Sure. My story is a little different. I'm new to this virtual meeting platform, coming from the military during the pandemic. April 10th, actually, 2020 is when I got back to New Jersey. And applying to Monmouth University, I wasn't expecting to do my classes do virtual learning, and it was a new experience, but I felt the military gave me a lot of preparation for this experience and in this field of virtual learning that we are enduring. I feel like the discipline that they instilled in me allowed me to help set boundaries within my daily schedule to allow me to effectively do my work and to be able to manage my own time. It's different because virtual learning it's a hit or miss. You might have people that show their faces through virtual learning opposed to actually face-to-face. So there's pros and cons, but every day I'm learning, and this is a new journey, I believe, for all of us. And we all started this virtual learning last year, and I think that due to the military, I'm able to be effective at this.
Amazing. Yeah, about what you mentioned about discipline and your own schedule. Katja, and now you repeated, creating your schedule, adding all your tasks as you're all thought to have, like, following up all the discipline. So that's a great advice, like adding all your planning to your schedule, adding every task that you have, and setting reminders for that. That can be a healthy way to keep the track of your goals every day and every month. So thank you for sharing. We have some questions from the panel before we move forward with some specific questions that we have for each of you. So Ivan is asking, to Joe and Katja, point about time and self-care, what do you think really helps veterans embrace their well-being and self-care? The employees assistance programs, ERGs or BRGs, or simply their managers?
Yeah, I think it's to Joe's point, going back to the email he read off, it really starts from the top, right? So just because a company puts out like, go take vacation, that's not really as effective as actually seeing your manager or your managers go on vacation themselves and actually disconnect themselves. So if they've told you to take 2 weeks off and then they're responding to emails and doing a bunch of stuff on their vacation, then, as a veteran, I know for myself, I'd be like, well, am I supposed to really, go on vacation for real? So, I think it really, again, it starts from the top. If you see your leadership practicing what they're preaching, then, everyone else will follow suit.
JT pretty much said it. I'm fortunate enough to work for an organization that really does practice what they preach, and and if my supervisor does catch me working, I'll get a ping, log off, like go spend time with your family. So yeah, you hit it right on. It was also something that, because I'm involved in so much outside of just this one of my jobs, I have 2 jobs and I do a lot of volunteering and stuff. I realized I had to start putting stuff on my calendar because it's another organization that I'm a part of would just throw something on there. And for me, coming from the military, I had to get used to that too. I was like, yo, what are y'all doing? No one pinged me. Whoa, what's going on? You just threw something on my calendar. You didn't give me a courtesy email or nothing. And that was a transition, because coming straight from the military, like right before the pandemic, I know like my leadership style is a little bit too direct for civilian world sometimes. So that was another thing I had to like get together, because to me it's like, oh, I'm being cool, I gave you a courtesy, and I'm direct like, what was this, or like what's going on. But yeah, so I think a safe space with like JT said, your leadership letting you know, encouraging you to take that vacation, but also I learned the hard way not with Garden State Equality, but a different organization. Like I had to start putting stuff on my calendar, because if not, they were throwing stuff on my calendar, and before you know it, I was in meetings all day, didn't eat, and I'm working till 6. I'm like, look, all right, hold up, this is too much.
Yeah, and I'll add a point to that. I'll kind of take a step back, and when you're in the military, that is your identity. Right? You are that NCO or that officer. You know, you are an Army first, right? And that's your identity. So when you get into the civilian world, you have to establish an identity for yourself, right? And what's so important about that is that when you're on these calls with teammates, I always encourage people, like, you know, get on the call 5 minutes early if you can, and talk about yourself, talk about what you're doing, share with people who you are innately as a person and what your outside identity is, and let that be part of the fiber of your personality. And when I go on business trips, my rule is the very first 20 minutes of a team meeting, if anybody talks about work or anybody looks at their cell phone, they have to pick up the check and they can't expense it. And it forces them to actually talk to each other about their wives and their husbands and their kids and their hobbies. And then after 20 minutes, when you say, okay, the work light's on, they're like, hey, bump that. We're not even going to talk about work for the rest of the evening, right? And so, again, that's that grassroots culture to make sure that we're all human. We all have an identity. We have to establish what it is and then make that part of our success within the organization. And I'll tell you, managers and leaders and supervisors, they're hungry for that, because if you're running a meeting, if you're running a call, if you're doing anything and it's just you talking and it's just all about work, it's exhausting. You need to find those angles in there where you can laugh and kid and joke and be human and actually get good work done. And then I'll tell you, the productivity and the quality will go up when people are enjoying themselves and enjoying the people that they're around. And veterans have a great personality. They've got great war stories. And their peers are always asking them to tell about the time that you went on that deployment. Share those experiences with them. Because only about 2 to 5% of them have ever experienced it themselves. And they are grateful and they do want to hear those stories.
That is wisdom speaking. Like so in general, answering Evan, it comes from the leadership, okay? And the ERG programs are built to help the people, are built to help the employees. So it comes from leadership. And we have another question. Dr. Angela asked, do you find it hard to relax? Most goal and action oriented individuals find it hard to do so. She mentions, I can find it hard to do so, but I will accomplish the mission. For example, like if you're working in sales, like you need to hit a goal, how would you approach to that? Do you find it hard to relax when you're taking PTO?
For me, I think it's something that I had to like really get out of, and I'm still working through. I feel like there's always something that needs to get done. So even if, like, you know, in the military, we don't have, there is no sick day. You go to sick hall and then you get some naproxen, drink some water, you go back to work. Unless you're getting like a tooth pulled and they put you on quarters, which is basically like 24 hours, you know, have some rest. But I'm not used to taking days off. Even like if I'm sick, I'll just work through it. It's something that's foreign to me. And I always feel like there's something that always needs to get done. If I take off 8 hours today, even if I took off the work day, I know that after work, after I'm done relaxing for the day, I'll still start to work again at 8 p.m. at night because I didn't do anything throughout the day. I don't know if anybody else shares that, but that's just my own personal thing, and it's really hard to get out of.
I'll just say, like, I've been out of the military since 2010. I've been out of like the defense industry since 2013, and I still don't do a good job of that. But what I have done recently is celebrate wins, which does still allow me to sort of like take that break. You know, in the past, you know, even if I accomplish something that I've been working towards, now I'll be like, okay, well, what's the next thing? Like, I won't take a pause. So I have started taking a pause, celebrate those wins, and then continue forward, moving towards those goals.
Yeah, and you guys are spot on. It's about the promotion system in the military, right? That's really what drives all this. You've got to get the awards, you've got to get the education, you've got to get the jobs and the titles to do the next, and then it just becomes ingrained in our DNA and our muscle memory and our fiber, right? And so it's hard to regulate that on the civilian side as well because it's just who you are. So, but I will challenge folks though that that's a good thing. That's why companies are going to hire you and seek you out and want you to be part of their organization because you bring that degree of standards of excellence that are contagious to those that are around you, and they're going to seek that out and they're going to promote you for that. So there's a balancing act there. Is that don't set that to the side. Let that be your driver, but find out how to regulate your speed so that you don't get burned out and you can continue to have a very fruitful career and have that work-life balance that goes with it.
Joe, you mentioned something very interesting about standard excellence. Like you are all trained and taught to be excellent. So moving to a civilian role, that will show in those companies you're going to pursue excellence. So there, I hope all the companies open more offers to veterans and your spouses as well. Also, you mentioned something very important, creating identity. Like, who am I after finishing the service? And creating that identity will help you guide your career path. So I find it very, very interesting when you're looking for the support groups. So that's what we're trying to do at Power to Fly. We want to be your support group so we can share our learnings and help you insert to a new civilian role. Next question is specific for Joe, but if you want to answer after this, you're all welcome to. As someone who has retired from the Air Force, USA Air Force, what would you say it is importance of building not just a safe and a supportive environment for a post-military life, but also how would you share like the sense of community that you come suffering with an anxiety transition? Does that brought you anxiety at that moment, or how can you share your experience from that moment when you shared? What did you learn? What new skills did you acquire? Because I think after that you acquire like new soft skills. And how did the community help you in the recruiting process? Who helped you back then?
Well, when I transitioned, I did work with several of the military headhunters that are out there. There's Bradley Morris and there's several that are out there, and then they will walk you through what we call transition from blue to gray, where they'll give you here's your military resume. We've got to turn these into civilian words, right? So that a hiring manager that has no experience whatsoever can say, oh, I see that equals this in the civilian world, right? So that's the first thing is always seeking out a mentor, and it could be a next door neighbor, it could be somebody at your church, it could be anybody that can actually take your, I was a transportation guy or whatever that you did, and be able to say, well, how is that applicable to an organization? And always remember that you want to take a point of view that you want to make that company that you're interviewing with, their customers successful, right? And so you need to articulate anything that you've done in order to make those customers successful, and be unapologetic about, I've never been in sales, or I've never done that before. Because in today's fast-paced world where technology drives and everything is constantly changing, you can join an organization today with somebody that's been there for 20 years, and within a week's time or a month's time, you can be as proficient as they are, because they're learning new things every single day, or they're going to get left behind. That's number one, is seeking out a mentor that can help you translate the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you've gained in the military into civilian speak. Number two, I said, be unapologetic about not knowing it, because your core values in the Air Force, it's selflessness and integrity and excellence, that will carry you extremely far in any organization that you get into. And then the third thing that I'll say is there's stepping stones to a long-term career. The first job that you land outside the military might not be your last job. So take a job that will transition you into the civilian world. Do your time there, pay them back, whatever you need to do for hiring and onboarding you, but get that civilian transition, and then seek out what the next job might be after that, right? So use that as a springboard into a long-term career, and treat any job that you get as a career with a capital C, not a job with a small j. And those people that are taking a chance on you will be extremely excited to have you in the organization. So I know I said a lot, but it's scary in the transition, but you find a mentor or two, and then once they put their arms around you, that they will help you move forward in a quick pace.
Really interesting. So seeking for a mentor, that is one of the main takes to translate your skills to civilian skills. Okay, and then creating your career path. Amazing. Being unapologetical. Thank you, Joey, for sharing that. Does someone else want to add to this specific question? Okay, thank you. Now moving to our next question, JT. Would you agree that to a large extent people are unaware of the path they have to take, or the help or support that is available for them? How do you at Promenade navigate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, when you get out of the military, people talk about all the different programs that are out there. They talk about all the resources that are out there. When it comes to mentorship that Joe just talked about, there's tons of organizations out there that provide mentors for you. The issue is not having that help when you get out of there. There's this proverbial sea of goodwill that's out there when you get out, that sort of like all hits you in the face. The issue isn't whether or not there's support. There's plenty of it. The real issue is, how do you find the support that is applicable to your individual journey, right? So if you're in California and you used to work in transportation in the military, and now you want to work in finance, how do you tap into the resources that can help you accomplish that goal it's very unique to your identity? So at Promenade, that I talked about a little bit before, it's a technology company that essentially we're helping those individuals based on their own individual goal and aspirations. We're helping them get matched and connected to the resources that matter for them. And the lens that we sort of look at this through is really through healthcare, right? So when you think about your overall health and how it's affected day to day, people typically, they think about the hospital system, right? Going to the doctor and getting a checkup. But day to day, the things that affect your health are your mental wellness, right? Your financial wellness. If you're thinking about how you're going to pay that bill constantly, that's taking a toll on your stress. Your career, your just overall having fun day to day. Like, are you taking a break? We talked about taking a vacation and disconnecting, right? All of these things really, they play the biggest part in your overall health. So that's the lens that we think about it through. And the challenge is, how do you look at all these resources that are out there and help an individual get connected to what matters to them? And that's what we're doing at Promenade. We're helping each veteran, whether they are just getting out or they've been out for a long time, get connected to the resources that matter to them. So I think, what was the first part of your question though? Could you repeat that?
Sure. Would you agree that a large extent of people are unaware? So like many people, I think, they don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Like, how do they search for this help? Or how do they look for a mentor? Like you're saying, hey, there's a lot of content out there.
Yeah.
So how do you change from that unaware to awareness to people? Like when you go out of service, is there a transition or a transition group, as Joe mentioned, a transition job? How do you
I think you're talking about the awareness piece, right?
Like, yes. How you change from unaware to awareness?
Yeah, so that's a great point. And that's really that's actually the easiest part, is that awareness, right? It's pushing an individual an email to say, hey, there's this great organization that's out there that could help you with, finding a job. Like, that's the easy part. But after you've driven that awareness, the next sort of challenge is, how do you make that individual take action on that resource, right? How do you convince them that this resource is applicable to whatever they're trying to accomplish? And then the next evolution of that is tracking the outcomes. Like, after the individual is made aware of this resource, after they've taken action, whatever that is, like, how do you ensure that resource was actually beneficial to that individual? So that's really the hardest part of all of this, right? Because there's so many organizations out there that are doing great work. A lot of them are overlapping. How do you get these organizations to work together, right? And that's a whole nother conversation. But that's really the journey that we're on here at Promenade, is making that process, that transition, a little bit more seamless, or a lot more seamless rather, for that individual veteran. That's who we're focused on.
Amazing. I have a general question for all of you. What do you think corporate America is looking from the veterans?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Yes. What is corporate America? Like, all the companies in America, what are they looking when they are looking at veterans? What skills are they looking for? Can you share about, with your experience with your companies, what are you looking for to see in their CVs? Like we mentioned, seeking a mentor, translating those skills to civilian. What would you say that your companies are looking for at veterans?
Linda, this is. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
No, I'm sorry, Joe. I was going to say, in the military, we are taught certain leadership principles that is instilled with us throughout our career. Also, we are instilled morals and values that are implemented through our leadership that we learn through the course of our military service, that helps us develop, better as human beings. And I believe organizations and companies around the world seek those military members that share those same values and morals, that align with the company's agenda, because we have a strict, I would say a moral compass code that we follow throughout our lifetime, that is currently instilled within me. Even though I'm out, it's still encouraged within me, and I believe other companies, seek veterans who, share the same values.
And Aaron, this is Joe. I want to echo exactly what you said. You're 100% spot on. And whenever I have the luxury of building a team and interviewing individuals, and the very first thing, whenever I say, tell me a little bit about yourself, that's what we're seeking out from an interview perspective. Are you a cultural fit? And do you have the moral fiber? Do you have the characteristics within your DNA that says, you're going to be a long-term fit here on our team, right? You're not going to put us in jeopardy. Things like, can you triumph over adversity? Do you have a respect for procedures? Do you have integrity in all things that you do? Will you be selfless, right? Will you shine the spotlight on your peers whenever they need the recognition? And will you boldly do the things that you're asked to do in a proper and a fiscal responsibility, right? And so if your ability to exhibit core competencies and that type of cultural DNA far can overweigh any, well, you don't have experience with our technology, you don't have any experience in our industry. We can train and teach people how to do things, but we can't teach them to do it right when nobody's looking. So you hit it on the head, Aaron.
I'm gonna answer that question a little bit differently. I agree with everything that was said, but I think the other challenge for the individual veteran is these companies, when you're looking at different companies to go into, you're also interviewing these companies, right? You have to do your due diligence to understand what that company is about and how they actually operate. Because, I think it's easy for us to go look at the top 100 companies that hire military veterans and sort of like target those because we see a lot of veterans working for those companies, but they may not be fit for you as an individual. So yes, you do need to sort of like help that company understand what value you can provide to them. But I also think it's on you to understand yourself as an individual and if that company's, the way they operate works for you, right? So I think that's a huge part of it that I think is missed as we're making that transition.
And JT, if you don't, you'll be job shopping, 6 months later, right? And it's easy to find a job when you do have a job, but then if you're distracted, your performance is going to go down. So it's a vicious cycle. So that's a very good point.
Yeah, I think the stats are 50 to 75% of veterans leave their first job within a year, and another 20 to 30% within the second year. And that's all because, we're not doing that due diligence. We're not making sure these companies work for us before, going down that route. So
that transition role Joe mentioned before. Okay, so thank you for that unexpected question. Okay, so now Katja, when it comes to remote jobs and flexible working hours, the concept offers a sense of comfort and convenience on one hand. Okay, like we mentioned, PTO, unlimited PTO, and several other benefits. Although, on the other hand, it raises a concern for something that is especially crucial for readjusting veterans, like mental health. Katja, can you tell us how stressful the work environment becomes? And is there any way to keep in check, that the transition is not overwhelming for those who may be struggling?
Yeah, I think I answered this one earlier, kind of by accident. But for me, in the line of work that I do, because it is more nonprofit and service oriented still, I spoke about activism fatigue, and it's real, especially because the type of work I do, it's gratifying because you can see the change happening. Like you can measure it, you can set a goal, accomplish it, and move on to the next one. It's healthy stress. I'm trying to find a good word for it. It is stressful, but like I mentioned earlier, that calendar, I have a few calendars actually, and then I have one that feeds all of them together. So I make sure that I'm not like triple booking. But I mean, at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was finding myself booking 3 things, like 3 in-person things in one day sometimes, and I was like, yo, this is it was a bit much for me, but I got the hang of it. And prioritizing self-care, I had to. It was something I had to learn. No one could tell me because even my supervisor, when I bring it up, what self-care was for them necessarily probably didn't work for me, So I had to find out what works for me, and I think veterans need to find out what works for them. For me, it's having 2 calendars, scheduling gym time, coffee. When I first came back, I was still using my GI Bill, class time, and then time to not just that, but time in the day to actually get done my everyday tasks. Make sure I check my emails, make sure I send this. And that just worked for me. But I think it's good stress, not bad stress because it's rewarding. What was the other half of that question?
Yes, and how is there any way to keep the transition not overwhelming for those who are struggling? How how does mental health in this case, and then we're going to go with Aaron with a mental health situation conversation, but um, how would you take that transition for the people not to struggle and not to be overwhelmed by that transition?
It would have to start with developing measurable tasks and objectives. Like for me, I did exactly what Joe said. Like I was looking for a mentor. I was a kid who came back and printed out business cards, and I know where people that I wanted to get connected to went. So now that I'm looking back, it was kind of, I was that weird kid like, oh hey, here's my business card. I just got back home from service. I'm looking to do this, and I think some people definitely like shunned me. Like who the heck is this kid? And then some people were receptive, and all it took was one person to believe in me and take me under their wing, because then they were able to connect me to everything else. But yeah, it started with measurable tasks and objectives, and then knocking them down one by one. And that, that list of, okay, let's do this first, and to keep the end goal in my, in my sight. That's what kind of got me through. It worked for me.
Amazing. Measurable tasks, one by one, and setting the goals. Great.
And Linda, as a mentor, I just want to make one comment, and that because I thought of it a couple times, I didn't want to lose it. Always flip the script, and if I went to you, Linda, and I said, Linda, does your company pay referral bonuses for great employees? How much is that, right? And then I'm asking you to start thinking, wow, Christmas is around the corner. I could get $500 for a referral. And then I just say, hey, I'm your guy for that, right? And so always empower people who are going to be very selfish. They take care of themselves first and their family first, right? That's all how we're all wired, right? So give them an incentive to say, hey, I'm your best candidate that's out there. Help me help you make money, right? And then, so when you find that mentor, they'll laugh and they'll say, no, I want to do that. That's not why I want to do that. But then the people that they talk to, they'll use that analogy as well. So it does help.
I see those at the end. We all move because we want to pursue things. So that's a great piece of advice. We have some questions in the chat, and we're going to have Aaron speaking right now about topic of mental health. In 2019, you participated in the Marine Corps' first LGBTQ panel discussion, speaking about service in a post don't ask, don't tell world, and how did you navigate your way through the Marine Corps prior to this discussion? And how did you manage your mental health?
Great question. I'm going to break it down with your first question about the topic of mental health. It's a very sensitive topic, as all we know. In the Marine Corps, throughout all the service members and even all the civilians, mental health is very detrimental to our well-being. For me, joining the Marine Corps in 2016, I knew the stigma of being what a Marine Corps and what the Marine Corps values were, but I was more scared about coming out to those I was serving with. I've always wanted to live my life free. I always wanted to be truthful to myself, and I wanted to set the example for others. Going into the military at the age of 28, I wanted to set the example, and so I implemented and asked around my leaders to implement a LGBT panel and a discussion board to help us navigate those that are insecure and those that don't have the avenues of coming out. And we were able to successfully put together this panel. And in front of 200 plus Marines, I sat down and discussed my story with them and how in boot camp, I came out the last week because I didn't want the stigma for those that were serving next to me to have a different perspective because of my sexuality. Finding out later that they accepted me no matter what, which was a great surprise. Mental health alone is very important to, and it's very sensitive for me because I've witnessed people who struggled heavily with mental health, and also myself, I've come and gone and seen counselors and sought help. I feel that many avenues of mental health can be channeled through talking to people, talking to your peers, mentors, seeking help through the VA mental health centers. On Camp Lejeune, there's several counselors that advocate for those that want to speak privately, want to speak in groups, to let go their emotions. In the Marine Corps, we have that saying, we don't like to show our emotions. And so a lot of Marines, especially, they hide their feelings. And so I advocated for those Marines that, that wanted to come out and to have a voice and to share their thoughts. And that was a very successful evening. When it comes to, what's your second question? I'm sorry.
Well, you answered that, how you manage your mental health, and how the Marine Corps navigated, like how they helped you?
So before the panel, there was not much of communication between those that were in the community and those that were not. There wasn't any group or any platform for us to come together before the panel. It was more so of me talking to my leadership when I first entered Camp Lejeune and discussed my story with my master sergeant and explained to him that I was a gay male, and I wanted to make sure that I have an identity, but also I wanted to feel safe within my environment. Though I felt at times that there was a lot of derogatory languages and many hazing situations that I witnessed. I overcame that by expressing my feelings to my family members, my friends. I talked to counselors. I was able to express my emotions to my company, and I was able to change a lot of people's perspectives about the LGBT community, and also ways that we can improve as a whole. And your last question is?
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for sharing your experience. It is amazing. It was amazing to hear it, and we felt you, Aaron, and we're with you. But unfortunately, we have to wrap it up, and we have very interesting questions in the chat. But I want to thank the panel for the discussion, for enlightening us with this discussion, to our audience for sharing the questions. And if you have, if you want to reach out and connect with them, you can connect with them on LinkedIn, and tell us how people can reach out to you and how they can get involved with you, with the work you're doing, and how they can connect with you. And by the way, thank you for being a sponsor for this panel.
Thank you. It's been a privilege.
Thank you. So before we wrap it up, we have only 1 minute. I want to share this question just in general. What should an employer do to retain veterans with the Great Resignation? We have this as a homework, okay? So if you give me that answer, if you email, I'm going to post that on my LinkedIn to answer Ivan. And Doc is asking also one question, that is, how is it different veteran from other communities in the workforce. So I'm going to be answering that on my LinkedIn. This is Linda Giannini with Power to Fly. And thank you, Joe. Thank you, JT, Kaja, and Aaron for joining us. And now we're moving forward to our next discussion. Thank you very much. Bye.
Everybody.